Hey friends, hey guys, and welcome to today's video. I wanted to talk to you guys today about C-sections. I wanted to give you my C-section journey. I have now officially had two. I had my first C-section with my daughter 8 years ago, and I had my second C-section with my son 5 months ago. And if you have followed along in my journey with trying to conceive, having polycystic ovarian syndrome, trying for a natural birth after a cesarean, and then inevitably ending up with a cesarean section and an infection, we will discuss that. There's all those videos on my channel, so you can check those out here on Facebook and on YouTube. I have been very open about everything in my life. That's just who I am. I'm an open book and I talk about everything. So here we go. I'm going to share my C-section experience with you the second time. I have made a first video, kind of like tips and tricks to, recover from a C-section, which I will share again because there are tips and tricks, and there are some things I learned the second time around in 2021. If you're giving birth in a pandemic, if you are very nervous about having a cesarean section, if you are plus size and pregnant having a C-section, if your birth plan doesn't go as you wanted it to go and you end up having a C-section, first and foremost, let me just say, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And this, any way you bring your baby earthside is a good way. And I kind of wanted to go through the experience with you guys. It's been 5 months. I am 5 months postpartum. I am finally feeling a little bit normal when it comes to my post-operative infection. I first off want to start by saying I did try to have a vaginal birth with this child, my son, my cute little cherub. Insert picture here, Lauren. He's so cute. He's so cute, and he was a big boy. I tried to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. I tried. I really tried. It's everything I worked towards. I gained minimal weight. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do, and somehow I still managed having to have a C-section, and I'm so glad I did because he had a bit of a traumatic birth. He was stuck, which we didn't know he was stuck until they got in there, and he was really stuck. So I'm glad that everything happens for a reason and that we ended up where we are. I am plus size. I am obese. Hate that word, but it's true. I am obese, and I got pregnant middle of a pandemic, and I was trying in the middle of a pandemic to get pregnant. We were actually trying before Schmish came about, and we continued trying because we knew we wanted to expand our family, and some people may think that's not super smart, but hey, we're all having babies. What else are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Oh my god, I can't believe I did that. So I was trying to conceive for 8 months before I ended up getting pregnant with Ev, and pregnancy was kind of a joy. I was I thrived during my pregnancy for the most part. I mean, I was super sick in the beginning, but that passed, and the second and half of my third trimester, I was feeling like a queen. I felt great. I was healthy. I had no blood pressure issues. I had no gestational diabetes. I did have actually, what was it called? I forgot. Hypoglycemic. I was hypoglycemic, so I had to eat a lot of protein and just watch sugar, but I didn't have high sugar at all. Actually, my sugars were plummeting. So but overall I was super healthy. I never had any issues, and my doctor was super on board with me trying for a vaginal birth. And when we got to the final days before my due date, I had non-stress tests because as a plus size person, now that I know this, I had no idea that this was a thing because it was not a thing when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was fat back then as well. I had to do stress tests. I had to go in for a stress test every week for the last 4 weeks of my pregnancy, and my final stress test was concerning. Ev was not doing what he was supposed to do, and it was raising a lot of red flags. His heart rate was kind of crazy. The fluid was measuring weird. There was a lot of things that went into it, and that's when my doctor and I sat down, and he just was like, I don't want something bad to happen to you and you end up with an emergency C-section. Now, typically when you've already had a C-section before, or if you have a scheduled C-section, they like to deliver before your due date because big babies are harder to deliver via C-section. Like, they just are. I should say term babies. I'm super glad that I was able to keep them into term though. I think it's important that babies get all that good stuff from you before they're born, but if I had to go back, I'd probably schedule a C-section and do it that way because he was already making his way down the rabbit hole and he got stuck, and it made for a really traumatic, hard delivery for him. Really hard for him. I'll never forget the moment I heard Dr. V say he didn't like that delivery. He didn't cry. His body went limp. It was super traumatic, and he didn't cry for like the first 2 minutes, and then he went from like a 4 on the APGAR scale to a 9 or something within 5 minutes. So God bless you. Thank you, Jesus. It was so traumatic. So traumatic. And I kind of wanted to share that part of the story with you guys because that's how I kind of got to my birth. And I did all the things that I did the first time when I had my C-section. I kept my wound dry. I think it's super important. That would be my biggest piece of advice is, well, it's not actually the biggest. There's 2 pieces of big advice that I would give you guys for a C-section is to walk as soon as they let you. Back in the day, it was like 12 hours you had a cath in and before you were allowed to stand up. Back in the day with my first C-section, it was 12 hours you waited to walk. And I remember I had a couple people I knew in my life who had C-sections who didn't move for a couple days and they had the hardest time recovering. So I would say the biggest tip is to definitely move as soon as they let you and have pain medicine. Take the medicine. Take the medicine at least for the first few days. If you're anti-medicine, I feel you. But it is so important for pain management because the more you move, the quicker you heal, the more you feel better, and it's harder to move when you're in pain, so take the medicine. Take the medicine. Take the medicine when they say you need the medicine. Take it at the allotted amounts of time. I feel like that makes such a big difference. My first C-section, I healed really, really well. I have a hanging belly, so I kept a sanitary pad underneath the part of my belly where my C-section scar was for a long time, and that helped keep it super dry. And that is like the most important thing I think with any kind of wound is to keep it dry. I healed great with Ella. I had no issues at all. And then we moved fast forward into this pregnancy. Now I don't blame my doctor. I don't even know how to start this. You have to advocate for yourself. I think that's how I'm going to start this. You have to advocate for yourself. With my second child in this C-section, I don't know if it was because he had such a hard time being delivered. I don't know if it was because of my size. I don't know. I don't know the exact reason, but I was placed on blood thinners. I have no clotting history at all. I think it was a precautionary thing because I had surgery and I'm plus size, and my doctor just wanted to make sure I was safe, and I totally understand that. But what I didn't know is that when I was placed on these blood thinners after surgery that I had a higher chance and risk of getting an infection, and that's exactly what happened to me. I got an infection. 6 days post-op, I got a fever, and I had John look at my incision. It didn't hurt too bad, didn't look terrible. I will say always keep an eye on your incision. You're not out of the woods after a few days. Make sure you keep an eye on it. If it looks red and puffy at all, go get it checked immediately, because the quicker you find an infection, the better it is for you, because it will not be good no matter what if you get an infection, but it is way better if you catch it quickly. So John checked my incision and it was puffy and red. I'm like, I don't know about that. And then that night I got a fever. I haven't had a fever that I can remember ever in my life, ever. And I now know what that feels like, and it was horrendous. So I got a fever. We went. He looked at my incision. He said, yep, you have an infection. I received a, what is it called? A giant shot of antibiotics in my butt. And that night I got a fever again, and it was horrendous. I felt terrible, awful, 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 awful. I went to sleep and I slept it off. Fever broke. I felt amazing when I woke up. I felt amazing. I was changing Everett, and I've relived this night in my head a million times. I've talked about it a little bit on this channel. I've never gone into detail because it's super traumatic, and I think about it all the time. And my anxiety, my health anxiety has never been good, but it's kind of gotten worse since then. But I stood up and all of a sudden I felt like wet, and I'm like, oh, Ev must have spit up on me. And I felt really wet, where I'm like, did I spill something on myself? What happened? My pants were soaked, and I immediately panicked. I thought I was bleeding out. It was blood, but it wasn't blood. My infection, actually, because of the antibiotics, was pushing it out, which is a good thing. So I do want to say this is a good thing. It was just a terrifying thing, and something I wish I would have known. I think that's what I want to share with you guys. These are things I wish I would have known going into this. I went in blind because it'd been 8 years, and I healed so great the first time, and it was fine. Why would I have a hard time the second time? I'm smaller than I was when I gave birth to Ella. I was healthier this pregnancy. My pregnancy went great. Why would I have a hard time? Why would this not go well for me? Well, there's a lot of things working against me. I had a harder delivery with him because he had a harder time coming out. And I was placed on blood thinners as a precautionary method, which I do not fault my doctor for, but I wish I would have known the risks. I wish I would have known the risks that came with the blood thinners. And this is me not saying you should not take blood thinners, because there are risks with getting blood clots and you definitely don't want those, but I wish I would have known that I would have had a higher chance of getting an infection before being placed on them. I probably would have made a different decision, considering my history of not having any kind of blood clotting issues at all ever in my life. But I woke up, I stood up, and my infection had pushed itself out of my incision to the point where I got immediately lightheaded. It was pouring out of me. I didn't know that would even existed, but it was pouring out of me, pouring out of me. I sat on the toilet. It was super traumatic. And Ella was just staring at me and saying, "Mommy's leg's dead," because I had blood running down my legs and infection. And John's holding baby. I'm screaming to call 911 because I had no idea what was happening to me. I had no idea. It was terrifying. I then had EMTs come. They cleaned me up and looked at everything, and I went into the doctor immediately, and they had to drain the infection for almost 2 weeks. It was so rough. It was so rough. It was so rough. But it wasn't impossible, and as soon as the infection started making its way out, other than it coming out and being disgusting, I felt immediately better. But I feel like there are things that come with a cesarean section that people just don't talk about. I remember with Ella, I like wanted a C-section. I didn't want to have to give birth. I didn't want to do that. It sounded awful and horrendous and painful. Knowing what I know now, I know I won't actively ever try to have a baby again because of this experience, but I don't want people to go into this kind of birth experience blind. I feel like it's super important to know, to advocate for yourself, and to ask questions. Even if it feels like you're annoying people, ask the questions and make your own medical choices. But also listen to your doctor, because at the end of the day, they're just trying to do what's best for you and keep you safe. And that's what my doctor was trying to do, was trying to keep me safe. And I didn't end up with a blood clot, so there's that. But when you go into a C-section, it's super scary. It's a really cold room. It's terrifying because you don't know what to expect. You know you're going to be cut open, and it's awful and scary, but you do have some, like, I would say definitely utilize your anesthesiologist. I had great anesthesiologists both times. My second time, he was an interesting character. He was a Chad. Does anybody know what a Chad is? He was a Chad. He was a Chad. Yeah, like all the scrub nurses love Chad, and Chad was super buff and super, you know, Chad-like. But he was a great doctor, and he listened to me, so that's great. I did with this, because I remember my first C-section, I was super like uncomfortable because I was laying straight back. You can ask, didn't know this, they can elevate your head, and that made a world of difference. I mean, I felt like I could breathe, because when you get a spinal, also a big, just letting you know, when you get a spinal tap or a spinal, whatever, spinal block, that's it. It comes on so fast. And the first time, I was not prepared for that. I had no idea what it felt like, and it scared the ever-loving crap out of me, and I was like panicking, and my blood pressure spiked because I was just freaking out. It comes on super fast. So you'll get the spinal. I had no issues getting the spinal, none at all. I know that there are people who have issues, but it just feels like you get all nice and warm and cozy, and just ask for your head to be elevated. It makes a world of difference. Holy crap, it makes a world of difference. I felt like I could breathe, and I just felt so much more comfortable. So that was really nice. This overall surgery was like way better than the first time. I was way less scared. I was way more comfortable. Your anesthesiologist is there to help you. If you even feel like a little whisper of nausea, tell your anesthesiologist. They can get it to go away immediately. You may get the shakes. I had the shakes. My jaw was going. I didn't have that the first time. That will also pass. And my biggest suggestion is when the baby comes out and you do skin to skin, because that is, advocate for yourself. You can absolutely do that. Once you do skin to skin and they're closing you up, I would say take a little pain medicine. Take a little bit. You don't have to go crazy, but the anesthesiologist will make you super comfortable. And I was like, you know, living my best life while they were closing me up. I was less nervous when I went to go breastfeed. I felt less pain, and it was a really good informed decision that I made. I didn't want to take anything with the baby inside of me, but that made a big difference for me being comfortable the remainder of the evening. I had such a pleasant, dare I say, I had such a pleasant experience with this C-section, considering that I got an infection a week later. But overall, my healing experience was great up until that point. I don't know what the point of this video was, honestly, other than to kind of talk about it. If you guys have questions about cesarean sections or like anything like that, plus size or otherwise, please leave them down in the comment section below. I will be in the comment section. I will try and answer the best I can. I will say my biggest piece of advice ever is just to advocate for yourself, to know what you're going into, and to not be super scared. I mean, it is scary, but it's also beautiful because you get a baby at the end of it, and it doesn't have to be that bad. I will say the one big piece of advice I've gotten from other plus size mamas that I would share with you that I didn't know about is a wound vac. Write it out here, Lauren, a wound vac. That seems to help a lot of plus size moms because it keeps your wound like dry and then way less risk of infection. If I got pregnant again, which I don't plan on doing at all, but if I got pregnant again and I had to have a third C-section, I would 1000% ask for a wound vac. I would demand it, to be quite honest with you, because I feel like from what I've read from my, like all my comment section from plus size moms and emails and comments, is that that made a world of difference for their healing, like a world of difference. So I would absolutely 1000% advocate for that for myself, for if I had to do it again a third time. Is that my C-section story? Yeah, pretty much. He came earthside and he had a little bit of a hard time, and then all of a sudden he was great and perfect, and he was almost 9 pounds and he was 22 inches long. He was a huge boy. He was a big old boy. And I was able to breastfeed successfully for 6 weeks post C-section. And I recovered from the infection. Like my body can do hard things. I can do hard things. You can do hard things. And I just hope that you go into this experience in life, if that's what you're heading into, with an open mind, and try and be as positive as you can, and just advocate for yourself. If it doesn't feel right or you don't feel like something's going right, just stand up for yourself, speak up, ask your nurses for help, lean on the staff at the hospital. They make such a difference, and you're gonna just be okay. My second C-section, I remember I made my first C-section video, like tips and tricks, and like, you're gonna be fine, everything is great. I didn't have that experience the second time. I went in like blind, like a little blind following, just like, I'm gonna be great, everything's gonna be fine, it's no big deal. And I had a way different experience. But at the end of the day, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm healthy. I mean, your girl's still, you know, but I'm alive, and I attribute that to my doctors and all the nurses in my family and everybody who took great care of me. And kind of talking about it is a little bit therapeutic, I have to say, and I get to relive those moments in my birth story. Traumatic birth, and it can affect you even when you think it's not going to affect you. It can affect you months later, and that's what's happening to me currently. I am getting to a point where I think about it often, and I worry about things pretty often, and I know it's affected me a little bit. So I have reached out for help, and I'm trying to work through that, because not everybody has a perfect birth experience, but any way you bring your baby into the world is a good way, anyway. And you are stronger than you know, and you can do super hard things, and it can be a really pleasant experience. My first C-section was a dream. Even this C-section was a dream. Like, it was easy, it wasn't hard at all. It was the recovery. So just know what you're getting into, advocate for yourself, and if you guys have any questions, make sure you leave them down below. And thank you guys so much for watching videos like this as I sit down. Like, literally, you can see
no school at summer.
No school at summer. My life is chaos. I'm not able to film vlogs all the time. I'm really trying here, folks. So thank you for indulging me and listening to me just blah, 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 spill my guts and talk about my experiences and share things with you. I hope that it helps anybody. If it helps one person, I'm good with that. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you leave them down below. And thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being a friend. Also, thank you for not pointing out the zit on my face. Okay, that's it. That's all. See you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye, friends.